During this tutorial, I'm going to break down to everyone how to Spotify actually analyze and report your monthly listeners and your actual streams, aka plays on your song. A lot of artists do not understand why their actual monthly listeners, which represents the number of people listening to your music, actually suddenly drops around a certain period or time frame during the month. And I'm going to break that down here so you understand that it's not a bad thing, but it's a good thing for you to measure to move forward. Remember, the monthly listener is a vanity number. The real number goes into how many saves you're getting and how many return listeners you have coming back to your profile. So why do you see the drop? Spotify uses a rolling 28-day calendar to track all of your plays. So they do not use, March 1st to March 31st or February 1st to February 28th. It doesn't work like that. They have a rolling. So if their cycle starts on February the 1st, starts on February the 1st, that cycle is going to roll to the 28th. If it started on March the 4th, that cycle is going to roll 28 days later. Within that 28-day rolling window, they are going to track all of your listeners. Your listeners are combined of two things. Unique listeners, that means people who've never come to your profile and stream your music before, and listeners who have come back to your profile and streaming you again within that 28-day period. Somebody could listen to you a month ago, and now they're back in your current 28-day cycle, listening to you in the month of February. So that would also be a part of your monthly listeners. New people have never come to you, and repeat listener. They could have been repeat listeners from the previous month or from 6 months ago. They are now in your active audience. Now, active audience means people who are intentionally streaming your music. That means that they search for you on Spotify. Somebody's gave them your profile, or your music happened to appear in their release radar profile, and they saved your music to their library and added it to their own playlist and are playing it. Intentional. That means they want to play it. That is part of your active audience. Now, why the drop? The reason why you see your monthly listeners drop around the 28th day of the new rolling window is because as a 28-day window shifts forward, listeners who stream your music in the previous month, but not the current 28-day window, are no longer counted, which leads to a drop in monthly listener count. So if you are in your February 28-day cycle, if you had 5,000 people listen to your music, let's just say 4,000 were new people and 1,000 were returning people. When the March cycle starts, if you have 700 people on that first day of the new cycle, unique people listening to you, and let's just say you have 500 of the previous people from before listening to your music, now in your new window, you're going to have 700 monthly listeners plus 500, a total of 1,200 monthly listeners. The only people you're going to bring into the new cycle are going to be people that are in your current active audience window. That's it. You can't carry over all the listeners you had before. And that's why a lot of artists get confused. The people must continuously stream your music to be a part of your active audience. So your monthly listeners can stay where they were or even go up even higher. Those listeners will drop off if they do not continuously stream your music. So again, during the February 28-day cycle, if you had 15,000 monthly listeners, and then on the new day of the first day of the new cycle, you could have 700 unique listeners listen to you right now because you're running ads or you're in playlists or whatever. And then only 500 repeat listeners are currently listening in your new March cycle. That means you're only going to have 1,200 monthly listeners. The 15th, and say you generated 20,000 plays from those 15,000 monthly listeners, you will still see the plays on the song. The only difference is you're going to see a drop in your audience that didn't carry over. Spotify is only going to count current people in your active audience in the new cycle and new unique listeners in your new cycle. That's all you got to remember. Who's in my new 28-day window? How many return listeners do I have? And how many unique listeners do I have? That is what you need to focus on as an artist. How many people are returning? That means they like your music. They're saving it. They're adding it to their own library. They're saving it. They're adding to their own playlist. That's part of your active audience. That's how the numbers work. So you're always going to see, remember, plays or AKA streams are a reflection of how many times the people played your music. So if you have 15,000 monthly listeners and you have 30,000 streams on a record or overall in a month, that means your music was overall played 2 times what it was. Or if you have 5,000 monthly listeners and you have 7,000 plays on your profile, you see the math. You always want to have more streams than monthly listeners because that's your stream to play ratio. That plays a big role in determining if people are constantly streaming your music and if they like it. Now that we understand that, I want to define the audience. So when you get your Spotify for Artists monthly report, you're going to see things like, okay, what is an active listener? My active audience. What are super fans? What is my light audience? When you read that report, it's important for you to analyze how many super fans you had for the entire month. You have an active audience, people who intentionally stream your music. You have a program audience. That means people who listen to your music from things like Discover Weekly, radio, on repeat, program playlist created by Spotify, and they came across your music. Okay. That's you playing within Spotify's algorithmic system, and people came across your record and played it. Then you have moderate listeners, people who have listened to your music in the current 28-day window. Then you have light listeners, people who do not stream you every 28 days, but they stream you before and they come back here and there. Moderate listeners lead into super fans. Super fans are people who constantly stream your music. I listen to Bryson Tiller all the time. I'm a Bryson Tiller super fan. So therefore, I'm always in his active audience, but I'm also a part of his super fan percentages. The number you want to focus on when you work with our team, Daisha and I always talk about, is what is your super fan percentage for the month? That is why it's so important that as you run ads and jump into playlists with our team, that you have a direct connect with consumers. The game has changed. The key to everything is how many super fans am I retaining each month? That lets you know if you are putting out quality music. Forget what you think. What do the people think? The people always speak. Are you listening? Final recap. Spotify does not track your monthly listeners and your plays on a traditional 30-day window. They go off of a rolling 28-day, which means it's starting over. So if you start streaming your music or start running ads in the middle of a rolling day period, you may only have 20 days left in that rolling window. When that rolling window is about to be up, you're going to see a reflection of how many people have actually streamed your music, which will count as your monthly listener within that 28-day period. The plays will be on your overall songs or on that one particular record. When the new rolling day 28-day window starts, the only people that will be counted will be unique listeners, people who've never played your music before, and anybody who's actively played your music before and have come back to you in the new cycle. So if you have 500 people that's listened to you again that previously listened to you before and 700 new unique listeners, you will have on day one of the new 28-day cycle, you will show 1,200 monthly listeners. So you will see a drop. So don't be so quick to try to run your numbers super, super high and try to celebrate. Hey, I have all of this. Understand the process. Focus on super fans. When you train your followers, your friends and social media following about, hey, I want you all to save my music and add me to your library if you feeling my new song. That you already psychologically training them to be your super fan. That's the new way. Hey, did you add me to your playlist? You got me saved? Cool. Go on to the next person. It may seem tedious, but it's so important. Remember, the more super fans you have, the more Spotify will push your music to Discover Weekly, to radio, to program playlists. There are a lot of program playlists by Spotify that they will place your music in. Daily mix. You're going to be in a lot of people's daily mix. Hey, Spotify picked this for you because they see people are playing your music more than once. Anybody, a dead clock is right once a day. You want to be right all the time.